Well, shame on me for initiating this new idea of doing more fantasy content. At the same time, I am as busy or busier than I've ever been in my entire life. So here we are in week 7 of our basketball season, and I am now getting to our second video of the year. So at this pace, you will have about 4 videos this year. So I did a preseason recap kind of the draft and what I thought of each person's team. Been wanting to do one of these for a while, just haven't had the opportunity. Pretty much, no exaggeration, I've really, really had very few opportunities because of this one and because of this one that's over here next to me. So, all right, let's get into it. I'm gonna kind of go over. I've built a little bit of a dashboard for some analysis, kind of my own hand-picked stuff, but hopefully it'll be interesting. We have a lot of teams that are doing well, and then several teams that are doing kind of not so well. So it looks like we kind of almost have two sides of this league forming. Ollie likes looking at himself on the video, so I'm sure you'll have some hijinks from him as we go. We're going to go through what all of this looks like. I'm a big fan of crazy colors, but first things first is we are going to look team by team at kind of how players have done so far, maybe relative to expectations. We're going to start with me. I make the order, I make the videos, so deal with it. So yeah, I'm gonna stop this, get started on another clip. Okay, so I'm gonna go into what this dashboard is, what some of the colors mean. I actually built this dashboard for a 224 team basketball league that I was a part of for a couple years. It was insane. Thanks, buddy. So this is going to represent the cost, what we spent on the players. The deeper the shade, basically red and orange, means you spent more. This is the average fantasy points from this season. Next to that, you'll find the rank, which is just a measure of like, well, how good is 63.33 points per game? It would be the fifth best in the league. The points jump is the difference between their points per game this year measured against their points per game last year. So on my team, you'll note Yusuf Nurkic down here is 11 points per game worse this season than he was last year. That sucks for me. However, I found two really big increases. Josh Hart, of all people, like totally didn't expect this. He's the 39th best player in fantasy so far this year. That's 9.66 points better. So last year he was averaging like 37. This year he's averaging 46. Same for Brandon Miller, averaging 42 this year. Last year he was averaging just 33. So that's what the points jump column is. I have age, I have the number of games, which will provide us with more context. Someone with only 10 games played, for example, Aaron Gordon, this points per game number is going to be a little more volatile. It's probably less reliable of a number to look at. And then I have the minutes played on average for each player as well, which will fuel a little bit more of a discussion on like a team by team basis when I kind of finish the individual team breakdowns. So starting with my team, De'Aaron Fox has been a pretty good value so far, 27 bucks for the number 23 player in the league, performing right about how he did last year. Played in a bunch of games, getting tons of minutes. That's really great. I'm not going to go player by player here, but when I see something that's significant either way, positive or negative, I'll probably talk about it a little bit. I think I just touched on Josh Hart and Brandon Miller for 11 bucks. I've got the 39th and 58th best player in the game so far. Massive point jumps. Not sure if we can really fully buy in yet or not, but decent sample sizes for both. They're both getting tons of minutes. I think a lot of people expected the leap from Brandon Miller. Josh Hart, they play without a dominant rebounder, and so he's just soaking up rebound after rebound. Secondary playmaker. Loved what I've seen from him. That's probably been my best pick of the draft. Wemby, for 46 bucks to be the fifth best player, actually is a pretty damn good value. Same kind of points per game as last year. He's adding so many three-pointers to the mix. I don't really know if I love that, but he's doing okay. Jimmy and Siakam are really disappointing, considering the number of dollars I sunk into them anyways. 54 and 60, that's not like it's a bad rank. And so if you look at a team in a 12-team league, each team should have 5 players in the top 60, just theoretically. I have 7. So not bad, but when three of those are like basically just barely top 60 guys, it doesn't feel quite as good. My bench is actually okay. Um, Four guys kind of nestled in that 100 to 110 range, so a lot of options to score me maybe 34, 35 points. But that's not going to win you a whole lot of matchups when you're getting 34, 35 from your guys. So, yeah, I think things have gone fine so far for me, and we'll talk more about the teams later. So, looking at Jay, it's been tough. It's been really tough. I don't have all the costs in here for every single team yet, so I'm sorry. Zion has been good, 20th best in the game as he's played, but he's only played 6 games. He's going to have lovely sound effects on this video. He's doing a little better than last year, so that's great, but he isn't playing. And so you're filling in this green here, 52 points, you're filling it in with one of these. And when you look around at the other players, there just isn't enough green here, if you will, to really talk about making a run of defending that title. I frankly am not sure how the fortunes can really change here to get us up into that top tier. So I think things are looking a little bleak for Jay. Josh Giddey was on fire to start the year. It looked like that was going to be a dynamite pick at like $17 or so, but he's kind of fallen back down. Between Garland, McCollum, and Giddey, you think of that's a pretty solid guard group. Hopefully, you have a stud somewhere else, which you do in Zion. None of them have really performed that well. I say that they're all relatively within expectations from last year, so maybe it's not fair to criticize them. There isn't enough point production right here to really look like a contender. Yeah, I think things are looking a little bit rough for our defending champ, Jay. JW's team is very interesting. You at least see some splashes of some significant point scores right here, right? Luka, number three, um, to be expected. However, you'll note Luka's points down almost 10 points per game. Obviously, he's still number three, but last year he was right up there at the top. I think he might have finished number one. So 66 points per game sounds great, but when you're spending $86 on him, you frankly can't afford that 10-point drop. He's looking really good lately. Obviously, Mavs fan here. Took a week off, rest up the legs. His 3-point shot's going down a lot more this last week. The Mavs are cruising right now, so I think he'll probably increase that. This number should decrease. The jump should decrease, meaning it'll get closer to the norm. Franz Wagner's been awesome. Just as as bad as Luka has been per game, Franz has been that much better. Franz is number 24 in the league at $8. It's tremendous, tremendous value, and that might be the one thing really JW can really hang his hat on this year because none of his $1, $10 or under guys have popped at all, and a lot of these I think were pretty much very end of the draft because when you spend 86 and then 32 and then 46. Um, that's tough. That's tough. Let me see what that actual total is. Keyboard was off. $164 on three guys. And Embiid, he is scoring 31 points a game less this year than last year. It's just unreal. When you look at these two guys combined, Luka and Embiid are scoring 40 points per game less than last year. We'll have to really keep that number in mind when we look at the team by team analysis later, but you can't you can't afford to spend $132 on people knowing they're elite studs, top five guys, and then have both of them struggle to the tune of 40 points per game less. So think about adding that 40 points per game in, not assuming any increase, but just assuming what you got last year you get again. And JW has every right to be pretty pissed off at what he's had from his team so far. And then you look at a guy like Terry Rozier, he's scoring 15 points a game less than last year. I mean, out of nowhere. They didn't sign a big time guard. I don't understand how that's really happening, other than maybe he overperformed a little bit, maybe last year. Anyway, there's basically no one on this team that's doing great except for Franz Wagner in comparison to their last season. Joel, obviously, this number is a huge aberration right now because he's only played the 4 games. But it's pretty comical in some sense, not for JW, but from an outsider looking in to think about 40 points. Well, that's going to change and get a little closer to normal, but things are not going very well for JW right now. Now we go to our defending runner-up, Tony, who's kicking my ass this week. About to set a points record for the season by like 50 points probably. Jokic is just insane. 85 points a game is 10 points more than last year. Dude just came off 3 MVPs. They had to give someone else one because it's boring to give someone 4 straight. Well, he's clearly going to win this year. 10 points a game better than I think number 2 in the league last year. Two, I should, not three. He's just unreal, and that is carrying his team. I frankly thought $85 was a silly price to pay for him, but it has been proven that that is an incredible deal. I'm a little skeptical of the performance of RJ Barrett. He's only 24. Maybe he really is going to make this leap, but 48 points per game, top 30 for RJ Barrett. I thought that was a weird keeper choice, honestly, at $6. I thought you can probably get him for 4 or 5 this year. It turned into a genius move. Jalen Williams, a lot of people expected a big time leap, but him being in the top 25, I mean, you look at this group of keepers. So he spent, Tony did, $116, but he's basically got damn near 200 points from these 3 guys every week for $112. That's amazing. You have another 80 something dollars to fill up the rest of your roster. Jaylen Brown at 24 bucks, pretty much exactly what you would expect. He's actually doing a little better than last year now that I say that. Because let's look at the point jumps. I mean, the point jumps. This is this is crazy. If my son wasn't right here, I was gonna throw in a expletive. It's insane to have 10 point jumps from one, two, three, four, 5 different guys. Now Nick Richards. Let's wait a minute before we anoint him just a top 60 player. Um, Mark Williams been out. Anybody? Yeah, Mark Williams has been out. I'm not sure that Nick Richards is going to be up here for too long, but for now, and Dyson Daniels, steals machine, defensive player of the year, looks like he could be a more valuable piece than Deontay Murray, like 1 for 1, let alone with the first round picks that the Pelicans gave up for Deontay, or at least the one first round pick. Hey, buddy, I'm doing something right now. Yeah, Jamal Murray hasn't really found his footing. He's a little worse than last year. Fred VanVleet has started to give a little more to the young guys in Houston on a point per game basis. He's gone down, but everyone else has just skyrocketed. Tony is an elite team, elite keepers this year. Very, very high on his odds to make a run in the playoffs. So we'll see. Looking at Matt's team, something I'm realizing just now that I didn't explain previously is that I've listed them in an order here of most points, right? That fits the positions listed to the left. So everyone's top 5 players here, it's whatever best combination of points I could use with this, the 5 basic positions and your guard and your forward and your 2 utilities, right? So Santi Aldama, the only player of all 12 teams to be a free agent that cracks the top 5, the optimal setup. Now he's only scoring 37 a game, but he's a free agent and he's the 80th overall player. 7 point jump this year. He's playing every single game, not even getting a full load of minutes. Good pickup to Matt. I'd say the Mavs, craziness is a little extreme here. You've got PJ, Quentin Grimes, Najee Marshall, Klay Thompson, and Daniel Gafford. And in general terms, this is not really working out for you. Those are just not usable pieces. Klay has not looked good at all. Gafford's looked actually quite good, but that is still a pretty low point total. I'm not sure you want to play him when Derek Lively is in the game. Might want to chill with the Mavs stuff. But PJ has turned into a hell of a deal. $6 keeper, $65. I'm sorry, 65 rank on scoring. Huge point jump this year. They've used him in post ups a bunch this year. 3-point shot's been really good lately. So that's nice. OG's had a nice uptick in points. Not quite living up to $13 though, I'd probably say. 77th best player, but you don't really want to pay 15 bucks ish for a guy that's not even cracking 40 if you can help it. Booker taking a small step back this year, a little bit odd too because KD's missed a lot of time. Kind of weird. Steph also almost surprised in some sense to see him only jump up 2 points with no Clay, but man's 36 years old. I don't know how much longer we can expect him to turn in elite numbers. He's probably somewhat close to the start of a decline. He's also only playing 30 minutes a game. They are clearly saving him, hoping they can sneak into the playoffs and then just turn it over to Curry like a, insane usage in playoff time to maybe try to shock someone, knock someone out. Giannis for 56 bucks looks like a really good deal at this point. This is exactly how good he was last year. He is the second best player in the league. I think he was first until last night when Jokic dropped the 103 or something against me. Of course, good pick, Tony. Really, no one else of note to discuss. Pretty good, um, options off the bench and Jalen Green, Andrew Wiggins, but really pretty thin bench otherwise. This isn't a team that's probably poised to make like a big run in the playoffs, if you had to say right now. But I think the last few weeks, point production's actually been on the up. So this is not a team that's out of it yet by any means. I think they're 2-4. So definitely still time to maybe make a run and try to get into the playoffs at least. Man, I'll try to keep this one short, just out of mercy for my man Adrian. It's been a rough year. He hit on LaMelo Ball, that's for sure. 53 bucks. I think he was a keeper. 55 points a game. He has seen his production spike. Um, well, you know what? I say that. He must have really come back down to earth these last few weeks because he was just totally balling out the first few weeks. But 55 points, LaMelo's been what he's supposed to be, right? Took a chance on Ivy for just a couple bucks. That hasn't really panned out. Kuzma's been terrible. He's only played 12 games, but boy, he's been terrible. Weirdly so. In a team where he should have the ultimate green light, he's been 15 points a game worse than last year. That's insane. That'll change. But like he's only getting 27 minutes a game. Weird stuff happening for Kyle Kuzma. Miles Turner has popped a few times, noticeably one against me for like 60 something points when he played the Mavs. I still won though. But he hasn't really been any different than last year. Tyrese Halliburton's been decidedly worse. Brunson's been a little bit worse. Getting a little increased production from Ayo and Peyton Pritchard, but they're still not producing anything reasonable or valuable. Kawhi on the bench, who knows when the hell he'll come back. There's not a whole lot of positives here. Even some of your good scoring guys are kind of going backwards from last year. This team, I can pretty much already say, unfortunately, not making the playoffs. This is a definite sell year. If anyone wants Tyrese, if anyone wants Jalen, probably Ball. Honestly, anyone on this team can probably go. I don't really see a phenomenal keeper selection. Um, yeah, it's already time to start thinking about 25, 26. Unfortunately, it seems. Nate is the most interesting team in the league. I think there's a chance you could argue that Nate's team might have the highest ceiling in the league. But look at this: 15 games, 13 games, 5 games, 5 games, 7 games, even 14 games is on the low side. It is hard to know if the numbers that we are seeing over here will stick. Paolo, for example, a lot of people, he's so young, he's 22. A lot of people expected him to do really well. Is he really 12 points better? Is he really a top 10 level guy? I'm not sure. I'd be a little skeptical to say yes. John Collins has all of a sudden done quite a bit better than last year. Other than that, though, like Sabonis is not up to par. Tyrese has been a little worse despite way more opportunity. Maybe that's just because the defenses can focus on him. I don't really know. Barnes has been basically the same elite guy. He has the number 8, 9, and 13 overall players: 42, 46, 45, 51, 50. I think if you were to like we'll see this when we do team by team analysis in a minute, but the average rank of his top 9 guys to fuel like kind of what his optimal lineup would be, it's got to be right up there, if not number one. The talent is amazing. Um, However, I do believe we are 1-5 because of these insane injuries. He's found a way to lose every game except for one. There's one week where he scored almost like 450 points and still lost because it just was the luck of the draw. He happened to play, I think, Derek or Brandon, who scored like 460, the number 1 and 2 points in the league that week. Bad luck. But man, when you're 1-5, it's not easy to make the playoffs no matter how good your team is. And most of these guys are back, so I think we're going to start seeing some huge numbers pop up now from Nate. But when you're 1-5, we have 21 weeks in the season. If he wants to finish 11-10 to finish above 500, which would then probably give you decent confidence that you're in the mix for a playoff spot, you're gonna have to go 10-5. Yeah, 10-5 is not easy, even if you're a good team. It can be done, and if I had to bet one way or another without looking at the schedule or whatever, I am gonna guess it will get done. But every loss from here is a huge blow because no matter how good your team is, if you don't make the playoffs, you can't win the championship. So this is a really interesting team. I'm kind of excited to see how they perform. Crazy that they're 1-5 with that collection of talent. The injury luck's just amazing. Terrible, terrible. The bench is not good. I will say that the bench is not good. So this is a team that is prone to injury trouble. You know, like if you get injuries, every team's going to suck. But like for example, there are plenty of teams that have better quality bench options, at least through this point in the season. So there is that. But otherwise, Nate's like right up there at the top tier in terms of potential. Speaking of top tier potential, this is just beautiful. Derek's team is crazy. I think he got some really nice values. He kept Cade, I think, and Cade has finally, it appears, turned into the player everyone hoped he could be. Number 10 in the league. I don't know how many people realize that. Jason Tatum, Cade Cunningham, basically the same player this year. Wild. Bam has been Bam. Everyone expects top 25 performance from him. Dame, top 26. I think that's about par for the course. Yeah, points jump's very minimal. That's about what he was last year. Jakob Pertl, though, has been unreal. And, I've always liked his game. Yeah, say hi. Great passing big. He's the only real big rebounder they have, so he's soaking up the rebounds. He's getting some assists. He always gets a certain diet of looks down low with points. Number 27 overall, that's kind of BS. I mean, I don't believe it. Like, Jakob Pertl is better than John Morant. Not sure. I almost got Pertl in the draft, too. I, like, backed off at the last second. I was trying to drain Derek of his money. I was like, ha, you spent 11 on Pertl. And he's legit all of a sudden. So, Ja hasn't really found his peak form yet. Julius Randle has been way worse, points per game wise, on the Wolves than he was on the Knicks. And that's pretty scary because really the only guy overperforming is really Pirtle and Cade. But I think people believe this part of Cade's game could stay. Hey, dude, you want up? You want down? Make a choice. Make a choice. I believe people think Cade's a legit star, kind of here to stay in the top echelon. Guys like Sohan and Cam Johnson going up by 6.7. That's super weird that went up the exact same amount of points. I wonder if that's like a formula error. But either way, um, Derek's bench is also bad, like most teams. But this 1 through 5 is crazy. Hey, buddy. And then pairing that with Jaw and Julius, the top 7 here is the best in the league. I don't think there's any question. Unless you, we'll look at the team by team later. You don't want me to see? You don't want me to see? I think Brandon's team has been probably the biggest surprise to me so far in how dominant they have been scoring wise, point wise. We've seen really big jumps Trey is Trey, and that's nice because frankly, when you lose Deontay, you're not really sure what direction that team's gonna go. I guess we all probably assumed Trey would get tons of volume, and he has. But Jalen Johnson's been rising. They have a lot of long guards in Atlanta. I wonder what they're gonna do with Trey. Anyway, James Harden's been a revelation. 55 points a game is insane when he was way less than that last year. He was definitely falling off to a different tier, but no Kawhi, no Paul George. James Harden thinks he's like back to his MVP form. Walker Kessler had a great rookie year, terrible sophomore year. Looks like he's back to being what he was his rookie year. It's only 16 games, so we'll see. Isaiah Hartenstein just came back, but he's performing at an insane level with no Chet. I mean, no Chet is the perfect formula for him to excel. Only 8 games, but he's putting up this points on just 30 minutes a game, too. He's been a great pickup. Well, he was a drafted player. He was a great pick. Chris Paul has been pretty effective. Grand scheme of things, uh, 73rd ranked player. You will take that all day. DeMar felt like maybe a little bit of a reach in the draft, but he's been top 50. A little worse than last year because there's so many mouths to feed, obviously, in Sacramento. He's still a very useful, productive player. Zubac has been unreal. James Harden to Zubac, like what a great stack that is. And 35th best player, like you would ordinarily, I would think you would say, well, there's no way that's going to stick around. Man, I think it will. Dude is good, so skilled inside. Harden is going to be the primary ball handler, obviously, whole year, whether Kawhi comes back or not. I think that, it looks legit. 24 games in, it looks legit. And if it is, I mean, Brandon is looking good. The point jumps here. There's no big, huge negative. Everyone's just way better than last year. And you paid these prices, which are not in here, I know, but you paid these prices based on what they did last year, and everyone's gotten way better, which is why, again, I think this has felt like a surprising team because, you looked at the dollar amounts based on their points last year, and it looked like a good team already, good, but not probably great. Now it looks great, and I'm trying to find the thing that, is the big red flag. Like, obviously they can't quite keep this level of points jump up, most likely. Well, maybe Hardenstein can. He's going to be featured. I'm not sure. Anthony Edwards has not popped, which most people have. This whole group, you would have said Ant's going to be the one that pops and goes way over 48 points per game. He's going to go for 60. He hasn't. That team sucks right now, and he can't figure it out. They can't figure it out. If Ant pops, like this is a legit title contender, no doubt. Duran is an interesting case as well because he's done quite well. Well, I mean, I think he's number one, or yeah, I got it right here. I don't know why I don't. Yeah, he's number one, 6-0. The points are not number one. I think there's several teams ahead of him. Oh wow. Oh wow. Oh my. Yeah, I think there's like 6 teams ahead of him in points. So, nonetheless, number one. Who cares how you win them if you win them all? So, AD's been phenomenal. The games played, right? Like this injury concern of his is starting to look like a thing of the past. Last year was really good. He's played damn near every game. If not, that's probably every single game this year. He's produced at an elite level just like he did last year. So losing a point per game when you're scoring 65, who cares? Cat has been a revelation fantasy wise in New York. I mean, total revelation. He used to be, I mean, there's 6, 7 years ago, Cat was the number one pick in most years. And like multiple years in a row, Cat was number one. I mean, it's easy to forget that because he frankly just didn't feel dominant when he was playing with Gobert and Ant, but dude is a monster for fantasy when he's the focal point, and he's been awesome. So that's probably, I forget what the total cost on Cat was, but that might be the pick of the draft or one of. It's on the short list of like most valuable picks because having a guy that can score you 62 a game, it's just so freaking valuable. Chet has been out, only played the 10 games. Hartenstein is now in the mix. I'm not sure how that'll affect his points, but I don't think it will. I mean, they're going to play Chet the maximum amount they feel like they can get away with to avoid injury concern. Paul George and Zach LaVine have been a little disappointing. I mean, well, they're kind of playing up to par. I mean, all these guys are kind of playing the same level. Like what he invested in them in the cost, that's pretty much what he's getting back for the most part. Dennis Schroeder's been pretty good. Evan Mobley is making a small jump, which means he's still really, really good. Jordan Poole's been a little bit better this year. No one else really to speak of on the bench. I do like the Stephon Castle pickup. I should have done that. I had the finger on the button several times. It looks like he's going to be really good. I like Donovan Clingan as well, and a couple of these dollar figures are nice. He's a free agent, so I can't put it in right now. I don't know. This feels like a good team, but not a number one overall team. Like, there's definitely teams ahead of Duran, but don't get me wrong, the team's really good. I just don't know that the guard position's just really weak, really weak. I mean, Levine, Paul George, Schroeder, Poole. There's not a guy in that group that scores even 42 points. 42 points only puts you in like the top 60. He doesn't have a top 60 guard of any position. I mean, not like a top 60 guard. He doesn't have a guard that is in the top 60 of the league. That's not a recipe for winning a championship, even if you have two top 10 dudes playing forward. I don't think. But he's 6-0, so who knows, man? What do I know? He's beat me. Dang, it was a close matchup though. If I didn't have an injury to Brandon Miller, I could have got you, but I didn't. Yeah, I think Duran's really a good team, and he's a really savvy trader. So don't trade with him. He'll get better. He'll probably make a move to get better. He's a contender. Anthony has been rewarded richly for Jalen Johnson. Michael Porter's had a little bit of a bounce back. Tyler Hero's had a nice year. So the top five, there's some reasons to be happy, but man, I don't know if y'all recall what the dollar figure was. It's almost $60 for LeBron, and he's playing super well. He clutched up the other night to beat me, I think. Yeah, I think we just played it, and LeBron scored 70 to seal the win against me. So stupid LeBron, hanging up already. He's been great. Not quite like the super elite guy he was 3 years ago, and he's like number one, two, three, or top five, anyways. But he's still awesome. Jalen Johnson is a pillar. Jalen Johnson's not going anywhere. I guarantee you he'll be kept next year. Other than that, though, the ceiling on all these guys is just really low. I mean, what's the most you're ever going to get in a single game from Monk, Green, Capella, or Harris? I mean, Green can pop actually, but there's just nothing here in terms of a serious contender. No, no, no. Two players with average points over 45 is just not a recipe for real success long term. So I'm a little afraid for Anthony. I think what I said at the beginning of the year stands that if you spend that much on LeBron, I just don't know how you can fill up enough around it. That said, LeBron's been really good. Last but not least is Bo, who has three really good guys. I mean, I don't know how many people have three players with a lower combined rank, which would mean you're better than 11, 14, and 22. SGA, Sengun, and Vucevic have been excellent. Keeping Vucevic, I almost questioned it when I was seeing what he submitted to me because he already has the center here, Markkanen center eligible. This was a little more expensive than a sleeper suggested. Well, it has paid off. 22nd overall player. They are the number one pace team, the Bulls in the NBA. At least they were as like a week ago. So Father Time has got to catch him at some point. But luckily for him, athleticism's never really been a big part of his game. He's just a super huge body, knows how to position himself, how to rebound, take some nice open jumpers. Decent passer, I think. But Shengun, a little bit of a jump, which is nice because last year he popped like big time, top 15 overall player. It sounds crazy, but I mean, he could be a top 10 overall guy soon. He's also not going anywhere. He'll be on Bo's team next year. SGA has been elite, a little worse than last year. This is what's really hurting Bo, I think. Markkanen in particular is kind of shocking considering like he should have all the volume in the world. His 3-point shots just not going down this year. I'm not sure what's up with that. Mitchell team's been amazing. but he's played maybe more of a facilitator role, I think, than he has in the past. If I recall, these two guys being 16 points worse per game than expected, considering like they were paid for at full price, I believe. That's a bummer. Norman Powell has been awesome. Grady Dick has been awesome. The namesake of the team, good team name. Um, Sarr's a rookie, so he doesn't have a points jump, but I would say that Bo is like a nice middle of the pack team. I think he could pop week to week. When you have three dudes with this much upside as Sengun, Vucevic, and SGA, obviously Donovan, like he's been a top 20 player many times fantasy, so I think he has a lot of upside week to week to beat people, but the depth is quite poor. He's relying on four people per week at least. Right now, five if you count Laurie, who are just not going to score you more than 40, 45 points. And it's tough to become a really good team, host a playoff game, if you will, when that's the case. So, what I have in front of you now is a table of some of the data. This is actually current as of today. I did the numbers a second ago. So, top five refers only to your optimal combination of a point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, and center eligible player. So, whatever the maximum number of points that could conceivably be put together with all of the position eligibilities for all of your players combined, that is what I've done. That is what this top five means. So, this 250 is the sum of these five guys right here for me, for example, right? So you'll notice top tier of the league is Tony, Nate, and Derek. They're in the 270s. Um, well below that, Brandon, Duran, myself in the 250s. Oh, and Bo. And so top five wise, that's not everything, but your firepower from your top five is a big deal because those are the guys that are going to pop. If you have guys that can pop, those are probably the guys. And one 80-point game from like a De'Aaron Fox or something, well, he won't probably ever get 80, but if De'Aaron Fox gets me 70, that's going to mean I'm have a good chance to win that week. Most likely, right? So when you see your top five points are low relative to like maybe your top nine or top 11, that probably means your ceiling is a little lower as well. Anyways, so I have your top five guys, your top nine, which would represent what fits in your actual standard settings for like a what you can put forth each week. And I've also included your top two bench guys. Again, that is your highest two scorers per game. Hey, buddy. Um, Nothing really jumps out at me in terms of this quite yet. You'll notice that while Brandon is like 20 points below the top tier in terms of the top five, when we talk top 11, he's crept a little bit closer because he has some better depth for, than Nate or Derek. It's kind of what it looks like when you see this number is a little closer to these than this. I mean, it's not that much of a difference, but points jump, this is an insane number. This is an insane number, but this is clearly the most insane number. And we talked about it earlier. It's just the Embiid effect of having only played four games. That's going to go way, 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 way up. But for now, yeah, these numbers are very low. And frankly, it's pretty much because of Embiid and Luca. So that's kind of crazy. So we got age. A few of our teams are a little older than others, but there isn't really a discernible pattern I sense there. Games. This is like the one thing that really sticks out is that Nate's team, the starting guys that make up his top nine projected points, we just haven't seen many games. So maybe a little more volatility to this number. It could go down because maybe we've just seen really good performances. It could go up. And then in terms of minutes, if you're seeing like your starting nine guys, your best nine guys, they're only getting 29 minutes a game. That is not a good sign. That means you don't have studs. You just don't have good players. Frankly, that's what that means. This is another little metric. I'll hide that. I'll hide that over there for a second. Yeah, I'll hide that. So this is the average points that you have scored. This is the average max that you could have scored. So this represents how good did you perform actually. This represents like what is your ceiling. Efficiency is the measure of like, well, this is your ceiling, but this is how much you scored. This means, in my example, I have captured 80% of my potential points for the year. This is a really great metric. It's a crapshoot a lot of times what game you pick, but you'll notice over the course of the season there are going to be a few guys that stay pretty high and a few guys that stay pretty low, and there's reasons for that sometimes. But right now we're seeing efficiency king is JW, but he just has no firepower. So he's converting on a high percent of his possible points, but the possible points is the worst in the league. Sometimes when your team is really, really top heavy, it's easier to be efficient because the numbers that your low guys are getting are always low. There isn't a big pop game that you miss because your guys just aren't good enough to ever pop. And so when no one ever pops and everyone's always just scoring 30 to 35 or less, your difference is not going to be as high there. And so I'm not saying JW is not a good game pick guy. He very well could be. I'm just starting to track this, so I'm not saying that per se, but there is potential for a little bit of a kind of misleading number there. Same for Nate. Again, Nate could be a great game pick guy, but when you have injuries, you're turning to really bad players. It's the same principle. He hasn't had his great players in there, all those players that really can pop, and so we haven't really seen his opportunity to like miss on 100 piece. Like he hit Paolo's, so that helped his efficiency a lot. But anyway, he still lost that week too, which is crazy. We're seeing Brandon's had really good efficiency. Derek, Bo, me, not so much. We're on the lower side of things. Um, Tony's had pretty good efficiency, and same with Matt. Yeah. What I've come up with now are just basic power rankings. So I think of Tony and Derek kind of being alone at the top right now. Brandon's right behind, but the firepower of Tony and Derek just seems to be a little bit higher. I think Duran is also a good contender. I think Nate is deserving of being in definitely tier two and maybe tier one, but the odds of making the playoffs are so much lower at starting 1 and 5 that he has to be on a different tier from them. I think that's sort of where I am too. Although I'm 4 and 2, I just don't think I've got the same firepower as these five teams here. But I'm doing well. I'm good-ish. Matt, Bo, and Anthony all kind of in the same general spot in the next tier down. One of these teams could make a playoff spot, although I would guess these six teams will, but these guys are the next ones to step up. I think, maybe Matt and Bo could even be a step ahead of Anthony, but they're all together right now. Jay and JW make up tier five. Not a lot of hope for these folks. Oh, you want to play PlayStation? Not a lot of hope for these guys, honestly, right now. It doesn't feel. But Adrian is just in a tier by himself at the bottom. The firepower is just not really there, and I don't see a great opportunity for him to bounce back. So we're almost a third of the way through the season. Fun to take a look. Yeah, okay. Let's play some PlayStation. If that's really what you want to do. Yeah, that's kind of how I'm seeing things so far. So hopefully I can update this. All I have to really do is come into this sheet and like paste a bunch of data right here, and all of these things will update automatically. Every single piece in here will update automatically, except for the cost. So yeah, I've built this out. I should be able to do more updates, I think, more quickly as I go. Hopefully this was fun, and yeah, hopefully I can do another one soon. So peace out, Funky Town Basketball.